So the purpose of this podcast is to describe the methods we will be using to connect to our individual servers we're going to have for the second part of this class. To do anything useful in Linux or Unix, you need to be root. You're also going to be doing, everybody's going to be doing the same thing. Well, we can't all have our own, oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. It would be a pain for us to all have our own web server running on the same machine. So I'm giving you all your own machine to do with what you will as root, to screw up as you like. So basically, if you look at the diagram here, I have my CNT serve, which is a server we connect to right now to do our SSH stuff. It's connected on the same network with the KVM server. KVM is a Linux free open source virtual machine software hypervisor, if you will. And on this KVM server, I have a bunch of VMs, or we're going to have a bunch of VMs that we're going to be using, one VM per student to configure things. So the way we can connect, there's basically two ways we can connect. If we just need a terminal connection to do some stuff, you can use SSH for that. You can SSH into the CNT serve, and then from there you can SSH into your individual server. Why can't you SSH directly to your individual server? Well, it has a private IP address, and there's no NAT out here anywhere to let you get to that. And that's something I would have to ask the college to do, the college people to do, and that's not something we really need to worry about because we've come up with a better way to do it, or at least a easier way where we don't have to worry about them. So to demonstrate the first method, if you SSH to CNT serve from your Linux VM, log in there. My password, yeah. So from here, I'm on CNT serve. Now I can SSH in to my other server that's running on the VM. Mine's at 240.110 right now. I'm logging in as root initially because when we set up this server, the only account that will exist initially is root. Later on, we'll secure it and we won't be logging in as root anymore. But for now, I'll log in as root, and then I put in the root password, and now I'm on my server as root. So that gets us to the server, right, with a terminal-like environment. So now I can run commands and configure it and do stuff. But now the problem is, how do I test the server remotely? So, you know, if I'm setting it up as a web server or a mail server, how do I actually test it? Well, most of the time you want to test it by actually sending mail or connecting to the web server. And if we go back over here and look at our diagram, right, you're sitting over here connected to the internet. You have access to CNT serve. From CNT serve, you can access your private machines. But from here, you know, how do you open a browser and browse to these virtual machines or private networks? There are some things you could do with SSH and port forwarding that we're probably not going to get into, but that involves firewall rules and other stuff that aren't existing. So what we're going to do is we're going to use OpenVPN. OpenVPN is a free open source VPN server. There's free VPN clients. So we're going to use OpenVPN. We'll use OpenVPN to connect to CNT serve, and then once that tunnel is established, we will be able to access our private machines across the VPN tunnel. So there'll be more podcasts later on showing you how to install it and get it working, but I'm just going to demonstrate quickly how it's going to work. So essentially, I'm probably going to make this VM with it already installed available. I may make a podcast showing you how to install it and compile it if you're like awesome and want to install it and compile it. So anyway, basically you just type OpenVPN and then the path to the client config file, which on my machine, that's where my client config lives. So I hit that. This is going to connect to the OpenVPN server, hopefully. All right, so it's connected now. I have an IP address. I have a tunnel 0 interface. So any traffic I send to the specified network, specified in the config file on the server, will get tunneled over this VPN tunnel to the private network, the rich net, if you will. So this shell is essentially dead to you now. You can't use it. You could, you could send the process into the background. Right, now you have your shell back. I don't even know if that works. Let's see if that even worked. So now I should be able to ping the private network. Yeah, so my process is running in the background. My OpenVPN is running in the background. I have my shell back here. I can connect to the private network. So just for fun, you know, I have a web server running out there, so I can connect to the web server on my private machine. So what the heck? Oh, 1768. That's not going to work. So there's my web server on my private machine. So this is how we're going to be doing our testing of our servers. I'm going to ask you to configure certain things, and then you can test it from your local machine. If you haven't been using the Linux VM up to this point, does that mean you should start using the Linux VM at this point? I would probably say yes. You know, I'm going to give you instructions for OpenVPN on Windows, but you know, it would probably be easier for me to help you help yourself if you have issues, if you're using an environment that I have access to. For example, if you're using your Windows box and you have like a bunch of spyware on it and you got 3 different firewalls and 6 different antivirus tools, you might have issues with the OpenVPN software and connecting. And after a short amount of troubleshooting, I'm probably simply going to say, you know what, I don't know, use the Linux VM. So it would probably be easier for you at this point if you have not been using the Linux VM to start using the Linux VM. So that's about it. That's how we're going to connect. Right? If you just need terminal access, you can SSH in twice, SSH into CNT serve, and then SSH into the VM. If you need to test the software, the server applications that are running on the server, then you can use OpenVPN to connect, and then use your browser or your mail client or whatever else you might need to connect to your server. So that is that.